and my phone is quiet.
In a small town living rough, times were hard and life was tough. On the porch we'd find our peace, talking about the land of the free. Stars and stripes in the sky, blue and red lines standing high. But beneath the freedom's call lies the story of us all. A conversation with the Mutts, just a whisper in our thoughts, talking about the dreams we chase in this vast American space. The roads we walk, they're cracked and dry, still we look up at the sky with hope that never dies and tears that fill our eyes. Thunderstorms and desert plains, echoes of our joys and pains. From the heartland to the coast, it's the simple things we toast. The conversation with the Mutts, just a whisper in our thoughts, talking about the dreams we chase in this vast American space. Roads we walk, they're cracked and dry, still we look up at the sky with hope that never dies, tears that fill our eyes. This vast American space.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Mutt.
And I am Mrs. Mutt.
And this is a conversation with Mutts. And tonight we are going to be discussing female gangsters of America. And you said that you had a quote you wanted to read.
Well, a quote, a saying, or a variation of a saying. I mean, we've all heard the saying, behind every great man, there is a great woman. Well, to go with that, behind every great mafia man, there is an equally great gun mall woman.
But isn't mall a negative term?
Yeah, a gun mall or mob mall is the female companion of a male professional criminal. Mall, unfortunately, derives from Molly, used as a euphemism for whore or prostitute, and attested at least since 17th century England. Extended use of the term without awareness of the Yiddish root, however, has invited interpretations of gun as suggested more than simply criminal association.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah, they weren't looking at it from the Yiddish root and the 17th century English use. They were interpreted as weaponry.
I got you. Well, we do have quite a few gun malls to go over tonight. And they are...
We've got a variety of them.
They are, to say the least, colorful.
Yes.
And they're each in their own right for various reasons.
Some of them were more willing than others.
Yes, this is true. Some were definitely more willing than others. Some were just downright vengeful when they decided to become
Hey, Mac.
gun malls. Mac's here. We can begin class now. Mac, you will be cleaning the chalkboards again. You did such a great job last week.
The erasers.
And the erasers. You did such a great job last week. I'm asking you to do it again.
That's just part of the tuition fee.
Yeah, that, at least I don't have you cleaning the lurker loft. Trust me, you don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to scrape gum off the bottom of the seat.
The gum off the bottom of the seats, the although he might enjoy the leftover beers, I don't know. That are left in the fridge.
I do know that we originally had said we would do from the 20s through the 60s.
Yes.
However, you and I came into a bit of a problem when it came to the 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
So basically, we decided to open things up, and what we found we did not divide it up by decades.
No, we did not. We were going to originally, but there were so many that overlapped in individual decades, and
right. There were ones that started in the 20s that you were going to take, but carried over into the 30s. So
yeah. So
do you have this one? Do you have that one?
Yeah, it just became more of a hassle to try to divide them up by decade. So we just, as she said, opened it up and we changed the title to Female Gangsters. So
we
grab your favorite beverage, your popcorn, sit back, relax, and get ready for a wild ride. Hope you have your fedora and your machine gun.
Yeah, gotta have the Tommy gun.
Gotta have that Tommy gun. We do not condone violence here on the Mutts American Mosaic, but we are talking about an era, several eras where
when we're done, y'all can sit back and watch The Godfather.
That's right. There you go.
Which I can't remember which one, and I don't know if I made note of it, but one of my women, or one of the women I came across, she might not even be one of my Americans.
Right.
She named her son Michael Corleone.
Oh, wow.
She might have been a Mexican.
It may have been.
I don't remember.
Well, we've got Jewish. We've got
she may have been in Mexico.
We got
or she may actually. I think she was here and then was sent to Mexico.
And when I say we've got, their heritage. All of these are American women, but their heritage.
Or at least did their work here in America.
True.
Now, I think I may have the earliest one.
Okay.
That was 1910. Is when.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and let you start with 1910 then?
Her name was Helen Godman. But she was known as, and I don't know if this is Buddha or Buddha. It's just Buda. I think it's going to be Buddha.
Okay.
She was once married to a pop sensation by the name of Tel Taylor. He was the 1910s pop sensation. She was most notoriously busted in 1916. For her part as the seductress in what was called a badger game. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a badger game is, just a quick synopsis. It's when a wealthy businessman is caught in a compromising situation and extorted. I actually read basically the tale of how this one kind of went down.
Right.
You had 4 men walk down the hall of a hotel room, approach a door, knock on the door. Well, they heard a male and female voice inside. Mm-hmm. They knocked on the door. The voice is inside. Stop. The men outside basically said, open up in the name of the law.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman inside happened to be a millionaire by the last name of West. Come here, baby.
We were being invaded by a calico cat.
Yes, my Trinity is deciding that she wants attention. There goes the purr. So Mr. West opens the door. The 4 men go into the hotel room and tell him, we know what you've done. You have brought this poor young lady across state line. Matter of fact, across several state lines from Chicago to New York. We have a warrant for your arrest. Grab your coat. They all talk. The woman simpering and starting to cry. They all start talking, and it looks like the lawman might relent. They continue talking, and they decide that if Mr. West will pay the 4 of them $15,000, which by today's standard is $436,356.
Almost $500,000.
Yeah, almost $500,000. They will tear up the warrant and let him be.
Good old American corruption at its
Yes.
finest.
Now, these men are not
Actual policemen.
These are not law enforcement. They are just posing as law enforcement. And Buddha is in on it. They find a mark. They send her in. She pretty instinctively, from what I was reading, knows a bit to begin with. She declines the flattery and the attention. And then somehow she instinctively knows when to begin giving in to everything.
I see.
So she's very good with playing the marks.
Gotcha.
And she gets them very often to suggest the tricks. Well, Mr. West realized he was taken.
Every time you say that,
You think of Adam.
I see Adam West in his Batman
Yeah.
suit, standing in a 1930s hotel room, battling, boom boom bow.
Yeah. Mr. West realized he's taken, and he approaches, and I can't remember the man's name. I know it starts with Dan something. But this gentleman was a part of what would become the FBI and was instrumental in writing something called the Mann Act, which is what covered or was supposed to beat or stop these badger gangs. So Mr. West went to this man, let him know what had happened. The gentleman showed Mr. West was the pictures and said, "Was it these 4 gentlemen?" And he said, "Yes." So that's how she ended up getting taken down for this particular thing. However, she jumped bail and went on to become a protege of Charles A. Stonehams. He was a notorious gambler and owner of the New York Giants baseball team. However, she got busted again in 1932 for fencing $305,000 worth of stolen jewels.
Stolen Jews?
Sorry, I've been watching too much of the political stuff.
Stolen Jews, ladies and gentlemen. Stolen Jews. No, that would be jewels.
Stolen jewels. And that time the charges stuck. Now, just to let you know, yeah, it was $305,000 at the time.
Right.
That was over $7 million
Today.
now.
Yeah, with the rate of inflation and everything. Yeah. Yeah, some of them were big ticket
And she
people.
was
Yeah.
known as Queen of the Backup Gang.
Ah, we have multiple queens apparently, because I have
Yes.
my next one will be a queen. It's known as Queen of the Mob. But I'll let you finish.
Actually, that is it
Okay.
on Buddha.
But well, as I said, the woman that I'm going to cover next is known as Queen of the Mob.
Hi, Bears.
She had associations with the likes of Benjamin Siegel, aka Bugsy Siegel, Joe Adonis, Johnny Rossell, Joe Epstein. Have to wonder if that's any relation to the Epstein, and Major Riddle. Now, Virginia Hill was a notorious female gangster and associate of the American Mafia in the 30s, best known for her association with Bugsy Siegel, as I was stating a minute ago, a high-ranking member of the Mafia who oversaw the development of the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. Hill was rumored to have been involved in various illegal activities, including drug trafficking and money laundering. She was known for her lavish lifestyle, extravagant spending habits, and had a reputation as a tough, dangerous woman. She was eventually, however, arrested and convicted on charges of tax evasion. That seemed to be the big one that they used with a lot of these mobsters was tax evasion.
That's how Capone went down.
Yep, exactly. She died under mysterious circumstances in 1966 from an apparent suspicious suicide. Her death is actually almost more telling than they. From what I read, they were walking. They meaning there were two people. She died in Austria. And I'll go into that here in a minute. But apparently, there were two people walking, taking their morning stroll, and they found her body in the woods, just randomly in the woods, dead. Virginia, the one time so-called Queen of the Mob, was an entrusted cash courier for household American gangsters from the mid-30s through the 40s. While still only a teenager, Hill showed her mettle as the beautiful and beguiling red-headed apprentice of a mob bookmaker Joe Epstein in the rough and corrupt city of Chicago. Imagine that, Chicago. I didn't think there were gangsters in Chicago. Note sarcasm here, yes. Ladies and gentlemen. Soon with incredible ease, using her looks, sexual liaisons, and talents for laundering money and stolen merchandise, Hill rose higher than any other woman in the national underworld, and equal among the most infamous male racketeers in the United States. That's saying a lot for her to become an equal, because a lot of the women, as one of the articles I read stated, women mobsters were seen as second tier or second class citizens. Hill is best known for her relationship with Siegel. It was a stormy union of two professional criminals, experts in money laundering, gambling, intimidation, fraud, and later Mexican narcotics. Yes, she got into the Mexican narcotics.
Uh-huh.
The two, both at times irrational, were very irrational and started seeing each other as early as 1937 in New York and resumed their affair full bore at actor Gary Raff's holiday home in 1939. To the still married, let's see, here's the thing. To the still married Siegel, who she was having the affair with, Hill was his ideal woman in all respects. Their intense pairing on the West Coast ironically fused the interests of rival mob factions. Siegel's ties to New York boss Charles Lucky Luciano, who used Siegel to gain a foothold in the West's race wire and gambling rackets, and Hill's association with Chicago outfits Charlie Fischetti and Fischetti's Los Angeles. Wow, this is how these all connected. And Fischetti's Los Angeles connection to the boss Jack Dragna, who liked to hear her tell what Siegel was up to. Dragna, who detested Siegel, was said to have once remarked that Hill was the only woman who could be trusted to keep her mouth shut. Hill's longtime financial provider, Epstein, who would be unusually dedicated to her for decades, reportedly confided to Meyer Lansky once that, and this is a quote, "Once that girl is under your skin, it's a cancer. It's incurable." I'm going to tell you what, she better be something else.
She must have been.
Yeah, she must have been. Virginia's backstory started at her birthplace, small town Lipscomb, Alabama, on August 26, 1916. She was one of 9 or 10 children, fathered by Mac Hill, a trader in horses and mules. She allegedly married a man named George when she was 14 or 15, and at 17 moved with George to Chicago in 1933, where she then dumped him. She then,
Thanks for the ride.
yeah, she then worked as a sideshow shimmy dancer, boop, boop, doo, at Chicago's The Century of Progress exposition, and some claim as a prostitute. A year later, she was a waitress at the San Carlo Italian Village, a hangout for the Capone gang. I'll get that out in a minute. Which is where she met Epstein, the Capone group's bookmaker and accountsman for Jake Greasy Thumb Goodsky. The chance meeting with Epstein would lead to Virginia's future as the mistress. Dun, dun, dun. Cash carrier, money launderer, and spy for many of America's leading racketeers. In 1966, now out of money, Even Epstein ignored her pleas for funds. She is said to have spoken by phone to Adonis, then living in Naples, Italy, on March 20th. She left her home on March 22nd. Her body was found 2 days later. Some maintained that Adonis had his soldiers force feed her drugs to kill her after she tried to extort money from him. Epstein publicly admitted he had sent her $100,000 from 1952 to 1965 from her investments backed by money provided by mobsters, and that her assets had finally run out, and that's how she passed away. Now, I will say that there are a lot of these women who die very tragically and very sadly. There are not too many of them actually had, these, loved ones surrounding their bedside as they slowly pass or anything. A lot of them died alone. So,
Angel is. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'm going to let you go ahead next.
Okay. Angel, remember, if you can't type anything in on the chat on YouTube, you have the option on Facebook. So if you do want to get a message through, you can get a hold of me. My next actually has links to several. I did not mean.
Well, I will say
to find.
Go
ahead.
Let me say this then, since you brought that up. Virginia, you will hear Virginia Hill's name again later on in the show. So that ties into what you're saying. There were ties. Yes. A lot of these women had ties to each other.
Right, and mine all have ties to one gang.
Right. Gee, who could that gang be?
Yeah, I did not set out to specifically find out about the Terror Gang.
Right.
Which I didn't know that was the name of the gang.
Hello, Bears. I'm sorry I didn't speak earlier. I hope you're still here.
I did say hi to her.
Yes, I did. I heard you. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think she's gone.
Okay.
I did not know until I was doing the research the true identity of the Terror Gang. That is the, I guess, proper name for the Dillinger Gang. So I did not set out to find women involved with Dillinger's
women.
But I found several of his women. The first one I have here her name was Pearl Elliott. She didn't fit the normal profile of the other women of the Dillinger Gang. Most women were connected to Dillinger because they acted as wives or girlfriends of the gang members.
Right.
Pearl differed because she operated as an independent woman in her activities with Dillinger. She operated a house of ill repute in Kokomo, Indiana, as a madam. Many madams in the early 20th century depended upon protection. Pearl wasn't out of that club. She operated her house of prostitution under the protection of her uncle, who was a political appointee. With a tight safety net around her enterprise, she kept a 21-room, they called it a boarding house, going for a decade, from the early 1920s until 1934. Now, apparently hers was not in town. It was a rural location. So, as a rural madam, she used something called the flashlight, or the flashing light at the window signal, which notified the local police if there was an unruly male guest
Mm-hmm.
that needed to be thrown out. This method of obtaining police protection was actually used pretty standardly by rural madams. I would hate to know the response.
Well, it depends on whether the cop was, a client or not.
This is true. Maybe get a little discount on his next.
Maybe.
Maybe the sheriff gets a little cutback.
Maybe. You never know.
She figured in the 1925 robbery of the South Kokomo and New Harmony, Indiana bank robberies, which were committed by Harry, aka Pete Pierpont, Dillinger's closest friend in the Michigan City Penitentiary. When arrested for complicity in the bank robbery, he failed to give information that would have incriminated her. He went to prison and she remained indebted to him. By 1933, she agreed to help Dillinger by holding receipts on several key bank robberies committed during the summer and fall of 33. On September 26th of 33, Pierpont escaped from prison with 8 other convicts. Along with Dillinger, there was John Red Hamilton, Charles Fat Charlie Mackley, and Russell Clark. Pierpont then formed the Terror Gang.
TERROR.
OR.
Okay. Just making sure that we're
Yes, Terror.
terror gang. In other words, terrorizing people. Got it.
Pearl Elliott's husband, Dewey Elliott, shared the friendship with Pierpont. Dewey assisted by getting the gang established in Chicago, where he had connections with the Frank Nitti gang.
This gang is attached to that gang is attached to that gang.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which helped, but Pearl unfortunately was known to Captain Matthew Leach, the head of the Indiana State Police.
Oh, Lord.
Through Leach, Pearl came to the attention of the FBI. By then, in early 34, Pearl was on the lam with Dewey Elliott. She left her 21-room brothel in the care of another prostitute. Shortly thereafter, she became sick. She died in 1935 of cancer.
Mm.
From her secret past to her untimely death, Pearl Elliott remains an enigma. She was alleged to be a treasurer and advance fixer for the Dillinger gang. On December 28th of 33, she was listed on the Chicago Police Department public enemies list with orders to shoot to kill as an associate of Dillinger. Oh, this one is not. Yeah. Do you want me to continue with the Dillinger girls?
Let me cover Miss Sinclair real quickly.
Okay.
Miss Sinclair, who was actually not originally an American citizen, but rather a French Guadeloupean, was one who also had quite a few names. She was known as she of many names. It was one of her names, is what they called her. Queenie, Madam Queen, Madame Sinclair, and Queen of the Policy Rackets. She used her nerves of steel, mathematical acumen, and self-made story and street smarts to become a boss a fashion icon, a civil rights advocate, and a Harlem legend. Um, she was, we'll get into it here in a minute. Stephanie Sinclair carved out a piece of the New York rackets during the early years of the 20th century, uh, battling other mobsters such as Dutch Schultz and Lucky Luciano, as well as corrupt and honest police for control of the gambling in Harlem. She was known to cuss out anyone who crossed her, and would do it. Would do so in a fashion that would make any sailor blush. She was born in 1924. I'm sorry, she was born on December 24th, 1897. I'm sorry, probably on French Guadeloupe. Died in December of 1969 in Central Islip, New York. And as I said, she had quite a few nicknames: Queenie, Madame Queen, Madame Sinclair, Queen of the Policy Racketeers, and so forth. Her associates were Bumpy Johnson, Dutch Schultz, and Lucky Luciano. I can't imagine being associated or having an association with people who were trying to steal your racket. But hey, whoa, how in the world did that happen?
Can't blame the cats.
No, I can't blame the cats. I did not. She was basically a mobster who, like I said, was a racketeer, and she ran the numbers game. And I don't know that I lost a lot of her information. Her information's gone. Not quite sure how that happened. But she did run the numbers game for approximately 2 decades, and was finally busted for, say it with me, folks, tax evasion.
See, you got a lot that were tax evasion. I don't think any of mine were tax evasion. That's what they get for hanging out with Capone.
Apparently. Well, she didn't hang out with Capone. You know, she didn't hang out at all with Capone.
No, she was in New York.
No, she was in New York. She was, definitely
My people
in
were
New
in
York.
Chicago, but they didn't get caught on tax evasion.
No, she was definitely a New York mall. So yeah, she was not in with the Capones. This was well before the Capones, really. But anyway, I'm sorry about that one, folks. Like I said, she died in '69, and I don't know what happened to the information for that one, but I do have others that I will be going over. We're going to go back and forth. Who was your next one, dear?
My next one is Edna Murphy, also known as Rabbit.
Rabbits. Okay.
She was a Depression-era outlaw and partner of Volney, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Davis, during the early 1930s. Now, Rabbits is what she was known within the criminal group, within her group.
Right.
However, she was popularly known to the press as the Kissing Bandit.
I've heard of the Kissing Bandit.
Some say it was for her habit of kissing male robbery victims.
Mm-hmm.
I came across one article that said she only kissed one.
If it's the right one, that would be all it would take.
Which was the first one, and it was I think it might have been a minister. Then I came across an article that they called her Rabbit because she was very good at escaping.
Okay.
And I came across one article that said she kissed one of the guards in the
Hmm.
process of escaping.
Wow.
So that's where the kissing bandit came from as well. So I don't know which theory lands on the side of truth. Like I said, she was better known in the underworld as Rabbits for her skill as an escape artist. Murray and her boyfriend Davis robbed a series of banks before her arrest. I guess this is the first escape that they have listed is in early May of 1927. She returned to her boyfriend for more crimes. She was next arrested in, guess where? Chicago! In a Chicago raid and sentenced to 25 years in prison at, you'll never guess this one, Jefferson City, Missouri.
Hmm.
However, in November of 1931, she and a couple of other inmates escaped by climbing over a fence. It was just that easy. They were quickly apprehended and returned to prison, but Murray was determined. And on December 13th of 1932, so a year later, she escaped again. She rejoined Davis, and the pair continued their crime spree before settling in Aurora, Illinois, which is not far from Chicago.
Okay.
On April 23rd of 1934, outlaws John Dillinger, Homer Van Meter, and John Red Hamilton arrived at the couple's home seeking a hideout before being nearly captured by the FBI near Rhinelander, Wisconsin. John Hamilton, who had been badly wounded during the shootout with the FBI, died of his injuries several days after arriving at her Aurora home. But with the FBI hot on her trail, she was recaptured on January 22nd, 1935. She was indicted with several members of the Barker Karpus gang, which is another name for the Dillinger gang. I do believe, for a conspiracy to kidnap wealthy Minnesota banker Edward Bremer in January of 1934. She fled and was soon in Wichita, Kansas with Jess Doyle, a member of the Barker Karpus gang, and her sister's boyfriend. She was apprehended there on February 7th of 1935. She was convicted with several others in the kidnapping conspiracy and sentenced to federal prison on May 6th of 1935. She was paroled from New Women's Prison at Jefferson City, Missouri on December 20th, 1940. She eventually made her way to California. She died in San Francisco in 1966.
There's two of them that died in 66.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, our next one, I'm not going to tell you what their name is right away. I'm going to give you some facts about them and see if you can figure out who they are just from the facts. I will eventually tell you. But this particular female gangster was born on October 1st, 1910 in Rowena, Texas, was shot to death on May 23rd, 1934, was the daughter. Her mother's name was Emma, and she married, father's name was unknown. She married a gentleman by the name of Roy Thornton. But she was better known for her long-term relationship with Clyde, and this is going to be the giveaway.
Yep.
Clyde Barrows. She had no children. Roy and Bonnie were married. Roy Thornton was Bonnie's first husband, actually her only husband. Roy and Bonnie were married on September 25th, 1926, when Bonnie was 16. However, they were only together a little more than a year, separating for the third and final time in December 1927 due to Thornton's alleged infidelities. We're going to how she met Clyde momentarily. Clyde Champion Barrow and Bonnie Parker were shot to death by officers in an ambush near Saley's Bentonville Parish, Louisiana, on May 23rd, 1934, after one of the most extensive manhunts the nation had ever seen up to that point. At the time they were killed, Bonnie and Clyde were believed to have committed 13 murders and several robberies and burglaries. One of the ones that made the biggest headlines, I guess you would say, was in Ruston, Louisiana. The pair kidnapped Dillard Darby, a mortician, an undertaker, and Sophia Stone while stealing Darby's car. Clyde pistol whipped Darby, and Bonnie subjected Stone to the same treatment, all while taunting them with death threats. Over the course of their 2-week crime spree, the Barrows gang also kidnapped up to 7 law enforcement officers. Now, there is no report of the total amount of money stolen by Bonnie and Clyde. What is known is that they did not get away with that much money. In one robbery, they made off with a grand total of $80. And it is believed that they never netted more than $1,500 in any one robbery, which is kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. On May 23rd, 1934, the FBI, joined by local law enforcement from Louisiana and Texas, ambushed Bonnie and Clyde on Louisiana State Highway 154 in Bentonville Parish. The officers fired about 130 rounds into the moving car, killing them both. It's probable that Clyde at least never knew what hit him. The rifle shot to his head killed him instantly. Bonnie, however, had time to scream before she was cut down, and the sound of her screams haunted the men long after the incident. As the car rolled slowly forward, they continued to fire. So long as the car moved, they continued to shoot. Now, mind you, this car had been shot up to 130 times. Some say 150. You know, something had to have gone through the engine block. So that killed the car right there. It just rolled through momentum, which is crazy. Now, I would like to, I know we've been going back and forth, but I'd like to cover the next one, because the next one is tied into Bonnie and Clyde, and that would be Blanche Barrows, the sister-in-law of Clyde.
Give me just a second. Mac, I'm wondering,
What?
which set of cheeks are you talking about, and does that mean I can't kiss you on the cheek with my lipstick on?
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to
Because
know.
my days of wiping lipstick off my cheek are over.
Oh, okay. Well, I doubt that. Blanche Barrows was born on January 1st, 1911 in Garvin, Oklahoma, and she died on December 24th, 1988 in Dallas, Texas. the source for this one, and we do have all of our sources listed on these notes, ladies and gentlemen. So if anybody is curious, we can give you the sources for where we got this information.
I have links everywhere.
Benny Blanche was actually born Benny Iva, quote unquote, Blanche Calloway. Okay. Barrows was the wife of Marvin Buck Barrow, and who was a member of the Barrow gang that was active during the early 1930s during the Great Depression. In other words, he was Buck was, and I will refer to him as Buck the rest of the time. Buck was the older brother to Clyde. Her parents divorced when she was very young, and she was raised by her father until she was 17, when she was forced through an arranged marriage by her mother to marry a much older man, John Calloway. Calloway turned out to be extremely violent. In fact, he was so violent, he was the reason that Blanche was never able to bear children. It was a time, in fact, it was during one of the times that Blanche had run away and was hiding from this man. She met Buck just a few days after the meeting. Barrows was shot and captured following a burglary in Denton, Texas. He was sentenced to 5 years in the Texas state prison system, but escaped in March of 1930. Blanche and Buck were married on July 3rd, 1931, and it was shortly thereafter that she began reluctantly joining him on armed robberies. I'm curious why she just didn't stay home. It just doesn't make sense.
Well,
If you know,
he was abusive on at least one occasion.
No. Her first husband, not Buck.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, her and Buck were married on December 3rd, 31, after he'd escaped from prison. Benny Blanche, along with several other members of the Barrows family, talked Buck into turning himself in, which he did on December 27th, 1931, and resumed his sentence. He was released from prison on March 22nd, 1933. Upon his release, the couple joined up with Buck's younger brother Clyde, Bonnie Parker, and W.D. Jones in Joplin, Missouri, where he participated in several armed robberies. Though Blanche did not participate in the robberies, she was present during the gun battle in Joplin, Missouri on April 13th, 1933, in which 2 law officers were killed. She was also in the gunfight on July 19th, 1933 at the Red Crown Tourist Court near Platte City, Missouri. Blanche and Buck were wounded but escaped with Bonnie. Clyde and W.D. Jones escaping to Dexter, Iowa. Boy, I'm seeing a lot of Iowa and Missouri.
Yeah, Iowa, Missouri, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, they were pursued, and another gun battle occurred on July 24th. Boy, there just seems to be a lot of ammunition being thrown down range. Excuse me, folks. On July, another gun battle occurred on July 24th, in which Buck was wounded yet again. Both Buck and Blanche were captured, but Bonnie Parker, Clyde, and W.D. Jones, all wounded, were able to escape. Buck died at King's Daughters Hospital in Perry, Iowa, on July 29, 1933, of complications from the wounds he received in the two gunfights. Blanche was extradited to Platte County, Missouri, to stand trial and was sentenced to 10 years in Missouri State Penitentiary. After serving 6 years, she was released and moved to Dallas, Texas. In 1940, she remarried to a man named Eddie Francheur. Eddie died in 1969, and Blanche died from cancer on December 24th, 1988. She was buried in Dallas in the Grove Hill Memorial Park Cemetery in Dallas under the name Blanche B. Frazier. So yeah, that's again, she lost both of her husbands. I think that's, I don't know, that, and they didn't say any more about her second husband, so I don't know if he was attached to any sort of crime. I tend to believe probably not, being that she was as reluctant as she was.
Mm-hmm.
I know that she was one of the other charges that she had, and I did not put it in the notes, but I'll tell you all. She'd also punched one of the officers, so they tacked on assault of an officer when they went to actually arrest her. So yeah, she hauled off and slugged me pretty good, apparently. Who was your next?
Well, Mac says that apparently there is a drive-in restaurant called Bonnie and Clyde's in Loper's Glory, North Carolina.
Loper's
Glory, North Carolina.
I'm not as familiar with it. He's definitely further west than in Carolina than I'm used to. I'm used to the Moyock, the Moyock area.
Right.
So I've never heard of.
You're more used to the state line area.
Yeah, the state line. Yeah, the state line, the southeast corner.
My next one is Helen Gillis, which she doesn't so much have the tie that my other women do. I'll be going back to that tie after her, but there is a little bit.
Okay.
Does the name Helen Gillis mean anything to anybody?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Or Helen, her maiden name was Warznia.
Mm-mm.
How about the name Lester Gillis?
Nope.
No? Well, Helen will always be remembered as Lester's wife. She married him at 16 and had a baby with him within the first year. And not long after had another baby. And because they were married and her helping him, by the time she was 20 years old, so within 4 years of marriage, she was declared public enemy #1 with a shoot-to-kill order in effect.
Damn.
Her only crime was that she stayed with Lester through his escalated career of murder and mayhem. And it only became worse when he got involved with John Dillinger. It catapulted Helen out of her anonymous life as the wife of another old monster. What would know Lester better as Babyface Nelson.
Okay, now I know. Okay.
Yeah. So Helen was actually in court in Madison, Wisconsin, for the revocation of her probation shortly after the death of her husband in a shootout with FBI agents Sam Cowley and Ed Hollis.
Damn you, Madison, Wisconsin. Damn you to hell.
Both agents and Babyface Nelson were all three killed in the shootout.
I had bad experiences in Madison. Sorry, folks. It just, yeah.
I big it all. Helen, after Lester died, did remain close to Gillis's family. His sister, Juliet Fitzsimmons, actually cared for Helen's children in her Chicago home when Helen went out on the road with Lester. She died in 1987 and is buried in Chicago. Although she died over 50 years after her husband, she is buried next to him in St. Joseph's Cemetery in Chicago.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, they were married.
Yes. My next one again does have ties to Dillinger.
Okay.
This one is Mary Kinder. I'm not sure if it's Kinder or Kinder.
Mm-hmm.
She actually accompanied Barry Pete Pierpont and managed to leave an imprint on the era. To her early interviews with the Chicago Herald and Examiner, to her sessions with author John Toland during the writing of his book, The Dillinger Days, and Joe Kingston for Dillinger, A Short and Violent Life, Mary told the first-person story. She also dabbled in broadcast media, with a radio interview she gave in the 1930s. Out of necessity, careful, paper girl, out of necessity, Mary was a suspicious woman. After her arrest in Tucson in 1934 with the gang, which I have the whole timeline of that arrest, the days leading up to it and the days following it.
Mm-hmm.
She developed a cynicism based on her belief that, quote, everybody was crooked, as she phrased it. By this, she meant the police, state prosecutors, witnesses, and every other figure involved in the wheel. Honey, you can't give me kisses right now. Sorry, my girl's trying to give me mama kisses. Every other figure involved in the wheels that turned the criminal justice system. It is hard to imagine that Mary could have been objective. Mary fell in love with Harry Pierpont during the 1920s when Harry went on trial with her brother, Earl the Kid Northern, for the robbery of a South New Harmony, Indiana bank. She attended the trial of Harry Pierpont and Earl. Earl was a 3-time loser. Therefore, he was in danger of being sentenced life on the habitual criminal charge, an option that judges once used to throw away the key on men they believed to be beyond rehabilitation. Earl, while spared the 3-time loser conviction, was ultimately sentenced to prison, along with Pierpont. Together, the two men did time in Jeffersonville, Pendleton, and finally the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City, Indiana. When Mary visited Michigan City, it must have seemed like old home week. Her brother, Charles Thomas Chuck Northern, had also entered Michigan City as inmate number 13354 on October 4th, 1927. He had been involved with bootleggers at the time of his earlier incarceration at the Indiana Reformatory, where he received on September 10th, 1925. I got a kick in my lap, too. as inmate 15337. In addition to Charles, Mary's associates in Michigan City were the husband of her sister, Margaret, Silent Margaret or Silent Sadie, Behrens, as she was also called. Mary's own husband, Dale Kinder, an ex-cop turned robber, was also incarcerated there.
Hold on, wait.
So her whole family's been there, except her parents. With the October 1933 escape of 11 convicts from the Michigan City prison, oh, it's Billy Beans, including Harry Pierpont, Mary joins the desperate gang of escapees. Insiders say that she kept the trigger man from losing his cool on many occasions. A letter in the FBI file indicates that she was possibly abused by him on at least one occasion, when he threw her out of his car and made her walk back to the hideout.
Damn.
After the sensational Tucson arrest, Mary was held in Indianapolis for 1 month while a grand jury tried to implicate her in the escape conspiracy. The charges were thrown out for lack of evidence, and Mary was freed. In spite of the difficulty in loving a volatile Pierpont, she never entertained a thought of leaving him. She would remain loyal to him as he prepared to die in the electric chair at the Ohio State Prison. By then, she was giving interviews and participating in a carnival show devoted to stories of life with Dillinger. Yet she tried to shelter Pierpont, spending the money she earned to fund his useless appeal.
Mm.
She lived until May 21st, 1981, when she died of emphysema and heart disease in Indianapolis. During her lifetime, she never relived, the excitement she knew in her days with Dillinger. She had struggled with alcoholism, which had started when she was running with Pierpont. Mary died penniless and is buried without a marker. Were she alive today, she could well be imagined on television, recounting her experiences for a whole new generation and an audience eager to hear her say, in her best Dillinger speak, quote, "You pay in the end and you keep on paying. I ought to know," end quote.
Mm.
She even helped the gang escape from the Indiana State Prison. Dillinger smuggled in pistols, but she helped by driving the getaway. Have you got another one? Or
I do. I have one more.
Okay, because I've still got a couple more that are, one or two more that are Dillinger, and then I've got beyond Dillinger.
Well, we can carry some over to another show later on.
Yeah. Because it is 9.
It is after
like
9. Yep. My last one has ties to one of the previous mentioned. I will get into that momentarily. But the young lady that I'm speaking of, her name is Arlene Brickman. Now, Arlene was born in 1934 in New York. She died on January 18th of 2020 at the age of 86. Arlene Brickman's life of crime started out with her behind the 8 ball. Not only was she a woman in a very male-dominated business, but she was also Jewish, which relegated her to 3rd-tier status among the mobsters. That, however, did not stop her. She was actually once quoted in an interview with Larry King on CNN as saying, I chose to I chose to participate. Okay. and she was extremely fascinated by Virginia Hill, who I mentioned earlier, saying that there was a broad that really had it made. That quote I started to give was, "I participated. I was a player," she told CNN's Larry King in 1992. In other words, I had a business with the fellow I was going out with. I had a numbers business. I had a sports business. We also had a shylocking business. I mean, it was a shylocking where he took most of the money, and it was like for loans. For those of you who don't know what shylocking is, the definition of shylocking is to lend money at a high rate of interest. She was not just a moll. She was an earner, a producer, if you will. All of that changed in the 1970s when she was violently assaulted by the mob in a mob hangout. When she went to the wise guys for justice, she was ignored. After that attack, she realized she was on her own where the mafia was concerned. I thought that somebody, she was quoted as saying, "I thought somebody would help me, but no one did. Nobody did. And I found out that I'd have to help myself, and I did," she said. "Oh, and I got back at everyone. Believe me, I did. I'm a great believer in revenge." She would go on to say in her book, Mob Girls, even after all of that, it was not until her own daughter was threatened with assault as payment for a Shylock debt Brickman owed loan shark Bobby Freschetti for drugs that she had sought the FBI's help. As part of the plea deal, Brickman's debt was paid. Brickman's debt was paid, I'm sorry. She, like many other women tied to a wise guy, learned the hard way that she would have to start looking out for herself. She, over the next 2 decades, would play the two sides against one another. She continued bookmaking and loan sharking while at the same time giving evidence to the FBI, eventually going from an informant to a court witness where there was more money. And she was always about the money. There was more money in being a court witness than there was in just being a CI. Hold on a minute. Oh, okay. She ended up, she died in an assisted living home. This almost broke my heart. She died in an assisted living home alone, suffering from dementia in January of 2020. It just, I don't know, to have lived, this huge life, and then to not be able to even remember the life you lived.
Yeah.
And you die alone with no one around you. But again, that's, that's how it went, I guess. She was quoted as saying, "I wrote a book for 22 years. I worked for 20 different agencies. No, I wore a wire. I'm sorry. I wore a wire for 22 years. I worked for 20 different agencies, and there were quite a lot of arrests, but it did not come to the point where I had to go into the courtroom and testify. And finally, there came a day, greed of money, whatever it was, there came a time when I needed money, and I decided to become a witness instead of a cooperating individual. She never once saw herself as a confidential informant. She always referred to herself as a cooperating individual. She never saw herself as a snitch. She also would go on to explain that there were a lot of highs and lows. It wasn't always about that she always had this lavish amount of money. There were times when she would have jewels, and then there were times when she would have to hawk the jewels to pay a bill. So, her life was a constant state of a roller coaster. And again, like I said, sadly, she died in an assisted living home alone, suffering from dementia in January of 2020. So she's only been gone for 4 years, and she was 86. So, it goes to show that even these glamorous malls, in the end, were not immune to a lonely death. So, I know you said you had more, but it is getting late. We can do another.
Yeah, this is a good place to stop, because my next one is another Dillinger, and that goes into the arrest in Tucson.
Okay. So we will
continue this next week.
Yeah, we can continue this next week. I can come up with a couple more, and you can finish up what you have, and we can go from there.
Okay.
So we will continue this.
Max says he enjoyed the time with us tonight. If we know any more wild women with bags full of money, well, he's got a good hideout.
Mac. Never mind. We'll talk later.
I can bring bags full of Monopoly money if you let me bring him along.
And we can toss in some Game of Life money. I mean, they've even got bigger. They've even got bigger bills.
Bigger denominations.
They got bigger denominations. Yeah. So yeah, that's.
We'll leave the promissory notes.
Yeah, we won't need the promissory notes. It's all good. All right, gang. So we're going to continue this next week. With even more female gangsters or malls or gun malls or mafia malls or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Ladies of the underworld. There we go.
Yeah.
So we will see you all next week. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other. And like I just said, we'll see you next week. Same time.
Love you all. Thank you
care.
for joining us.
Bye-bye. Have fun storming the castle.